Oh, yeah. There we go.
There we go. Well, welcome, Dr. Mark Howard, to our to South Africa. Most of us. There's some people in from other places, but it's just such an honor to have you here. It's the first time for us on our platform, and we really have been excited for those of us that have been talking about it because what you are bringing for us this evening is something that we haven't really looked at, as a three principles solution to what you specialize in, which is addiction and habits and so on. And I've watched so many of your YouTubes, and obviously you and I have become friends now and have chatted. And just to give you a little bit of background, everybody, I got hold of Dr. Mark Howard several months ago because I had a need in my own family, and Dr. Howard was suggested to me, and so we started some conversations, and then just how these things happen. It just felt like such a beautiful connection, and so Dr. Howard shared some amazing stuff with me, which I treasure. Thank you so much. And I really felt like it would be so good for us to speak to Mark Howard tonight and hear what he has to tell us, because he is what we would consider a first generation three principles teacher, because he knew Sydney Banks directly. How amazing
Oh,
is that?
wow.
Yeah, it's really well. And he's part of the Three Principles Institute in the US, and he also is a licensed psychologist. So he's got decades of experience with this work, and really just such a joy and a delight and a privilege to have you here, Mark. So thank you so much for being here. And I'm not going to take up time because we want to just hear you and just marinate in everything that you've got to give us this evening. And then hopefully we'll get some time for questions. So please don't be shy. This is your opportunity. It's our last masterclass for the year. So, hop on, and I'm sure if you've got a question, there's other people that will want to know that, because it helps us all if you just speak yourself into the room and say what you need to say and share or ask a question. So thank you, Mark, and straight over to you.
Oh, well, thank you, Sharon, and thank you for that uh, beautiful introduction. And it's interesting how it comes about that, out of a request of me, we become friends and colleagues. And just so good to be with all of you. Um, I also love to have our meetings interactive and help with any questions or anything you'd like to share about this understanding. Um, so yeah, I met Sydney Banks many years ago in like 1983 and continued to learn from him and his seminars that he would put on and his writings and so forth. And there's now a new website where you can see all of, several of his seminars for free. You could just click on different chapters of one of the seminars and you'll get a lot out of it, whatever one you select, along with other presentations he's made. So Sharon, you want me to speak to addiction and compulsive thinking?
Absolutely. Yes,
Okay.
please.
Yeah, well, so um, I was hired in this medical center in the Department of Psychiatry. This goes back to, you know, I don't mean to age myself, but 1979. And then they asked me to take over this new development within this whole health organization that spanned like 26 medical centers, and they asked me if I would take over directing the new alcohol and drug abuse program for this the psychiatry department I was hired, that I worked in, which I did. And through the years, I continue to reflect on how do the three principles, how does Sydney's Banks teachings really share an understanding about either addiction or compulsive behaviors or thoughts in a way that makes sense for people and really gives them something that goes beyond what's standard. So that's what I'm going to present to you is, what I made of this. And it's been very, very helpful to people over the years. And, into the fact that Jacqueline Hollows in the UK formed her Beyond Recovery using what I used to call the addiction cycle. And at a conference pre-COVID, she made out T-shirts with the little addiction cycle stamp on the shirt, and so it's been very, very useful for people suffering from compulsive habits, addictions, things like that. So there's a few things to just point out. The first thing I realized is that every human being, is looking for a better feeling. And if we look at it from what Sydney Banks talks about, our purpose here in life is to find happiness and well-being, love and understanding, to live enjoying the world we were given. So what I found with people who were, at an abuse level of alcohol or other drugs, or just in this repetitive thinking, was that they were trying to find a way to feel better. And that really helped to see that they were human. Um, it was like all of us. All of us really want to find a way to just live more in well-being and the love and understanding. And so that was a really helpful point to have our staff look at when people came into our program. Everyone is here just trying to find a way to feel better. Now, what happens to all of us is that we look outside of ourselves for something that will help us feel better. Nothing wrong with any of this. It could be exercise. It could be hobbies. It could be shopping. And for people in our program, it was alcohol or other drugs. And they would, through thought, through their habits of thinking, get stressed, get into painful feelings, think judgmentally about themselves, feel depressed, feel anxious. And so they're looking outside of themselves as a way to feel better than that. And that's really where we're vulnerable. We're vulnerable because until we realize where our experience of life is truly coming from, where our feelings are really being created, we're all vulnerable to looking outside for that. A new car. Like for me, when I was in graduate school, the PhD program, I thought, well, I'll study hard. I'll have really stressful days, but by the time when I get that degree, then I can be happy. Now that doesn't mean I wasn't enjoying my life through the graduate program, but I did have that sense that the program was stressful, and I thought, okay, at the end of this, I'm not going to have any more stress in my life, Well, as you all know, that I was awarded the PhD, and the minute they said, you defend your dissertation, the minute they said, congratulations, Dr. Howard, it felt great, but it wasn't that, it wasn't that glorious state that I thought I would find. So that's where people are vulnerable. They're vulnerable to try to get that feeling that is being created by their learned thinking outside of themselves, because they don't see that how they're using this power of thought is why they're feeling the way they are. So when we don't see that, we don't think anything about looking within ourselves. We look outside of ourselves. So people go shopping, and as they're shopping, all of a sudden they're feeling great. And then they buy another item, and then they, shop for some, for their kids, and they're really getting into what a good feeling for themselves. People coming home from a stressful work day have a couple of martinis and are feeling better, and so forth. So that's where we're vulnerable. Now, where people get what I would call hooked, where they get dependent on the outside, where they get addicted to the outside or their compulsive thinking, is that they think doing that is why they feel better. So when someone truly has the compulsion, they've got to really wash their hands 5 times before they can leave the house. They feel better after that fifth time, because they think doing that is why they feel better. When somebody's shopping and they're feeling better, they think it's the shopping. When they're doing exercise and they're feeling better, they think it's doing the exercise. Now, nothing wrong with exercise, nothing wrong with shopping. I just want to see that when people attribute a change in their feeling to something outside of themselves that they're doing, they get hooked into doing that. They'll think, oh man, shopping made me feel great. I just felt, I wasn't stressed. The day left me. And so tomorrow I'm going to go back to the shopping mall. Somebody lifting weights as at the gym, feeling getting into nice feelings doing that. We'll get back to the gym daily, and so forth. So that's where people get dependent. They think all of us are vulnerable to this too, that what we're doing is why we feel better. But with the understanding of the principles, as I was serving the people in our program, I realized that what was really going on was that when people, let's say, went shopping, when people started to have their first drink of their martini, when people had their first puff of marijuana, when people started to do their 5-mile run, what happened really was they dropped their painful thinking. They let go of their stressful thinking. Otherwise, nothing could make them feel better. Nothing could. And what taught me that was, people would come into our program and they'd be depressed. And so they said, oh, I took a couple of drinks and I started feeling better. They would come back the next week and say, well, I had 2 or 3 drinks and I still felt depressed. Some people would say, oh, I don't drink because that makes me feel worse. I use cocaine. So I was starting to be curious about what could explain that. And as I was learning more from Sydney Banks about the principles, I realized that people felt better because whatever it was they were doing, when they did that, they let go of their uh, painful, stressful, negative thinking. It was gone. If they didn't, they would feel worse. So, like, I used to do jogging. I used to jog uh, um, uh, like 4 times a week. And most of the time, I would just get into this beautiful place of inside me of just enjoying it, looking at the nature around me. Um, I'd get ideas about how to share this understanding, but there would be the time where all of a sudden I couldn't get out of a stressful thinking. And when I couldn't drop stressful thinking, and I didn't know I was doing this, but when that stressful thinking wouldn't leave, then I started to notice, oh, my legs are hurting. Oh man, I just kind of felt something in my back. Oh man, should I go the full 3 miles? Well, so I just got into even more thought. And so at that time, that day of jogging did not make me feel better. I did not think about uh, getting in, of the beauty of nature. I was in stressful thinking. So that's the element that I started to share with people that let's take a look at this together. I would say, what's really captured you into this thing you're doing compulsively or addictively is that you think that what you're doing is making you feel better. And they would all say, oh, yeah, yeah, of course. I say, well, what we need to look at is it's not so much what you're doing, it's that while you are doing it, you drop your painful thinking. See, that's the hook. So when people wash their hands 5 times, they can leave because they let go of all of that thinking that harm would have, something would happen. They would let go of all that anxiety of the morning that they were feeling. They let it go as they were washing their hands. So it wasn't so much what people were doing, it was what happened to their uh, way of thinking when they uh, did that uh, addictive behavior. So those were the points that I started to share with people. Every human being is looking for happiness and well-being, a better feeling. Thought creates the feelings in us of depression or anxiety or stress that lead us to look outside of ourselves to feel better, to do something, to get something that makes us feel better. And we get hooked to that because we think that while we're doing that, that's why we feel better. We don't realize that when we went about our drinking or went about our shopping or went about our exercise, to feel better, we had to drop our painful thinking. So those are the 3 elements in ways that the principle started to help us understand addictions and compulsions. The next piece that really was profound, and you can hear this, I think, on one of those videos that are available on Sid's website. But I heard it on an audio tape that I was listening to when Sydney said, mental health, all mental health is contentment. And contentment is satisfaction with what is. That's what he shared. And it just hit me. It blew my mind how profound that was and how simple that was compared to all of the ways I was taught to think about what mental health was and what mental illness was. I was rarely taught about mental health. I was taught about mental illness. And I started to, again, reflect on that. You see, I didn't really know what he meant, but it felt true. And I just saw that's it. It's that simple. And as I started to reflect on it, I saw that what he meant by contentment, this is what I think. I don't know what he really saw, but what I saw was contentment is a place in us, a state of consciousness where we just feel beautiful. We just feel at peace. We just have beautiful feelings. Somebody shared yesterday when I was coaching how over the past week and they're realizing more about thought, they got a sense of peace. That's it. That's contentment. It's just this beautiful space. Now, what I realized is when you're in that conscious space, you're not thinking about yourself. You have lost a sense of yourself. So you don't think you need more. See, you don't think you need to feel better than this. This is it. You don't, when you're truly in contentment, the beautiful feelings of peace of mind, of love and understanding, however it is that you would describe this space, you don't think you need to feel better. You're just you're just uh, in this space of happiness you're meant to live in. Nor do you think you're lacking anything. So I started to see, wow, that's true. If people were in a space where they didn't think they needed more or they didn't have any desire, they went beyond their own personal thinking, that would be it. That would be health. So that's what he meant by satisfied with what is. You're not disturbed by anything. You don't desire more. It's just fine. I'm using words to describe a state we can drop into that you can't define, but we have it. So as I started to see more of that, I could start to bring that to the people in my program that really we have to look toward an understanding of the principles that it wakes up in you this contentment, that you start to look within yourself for it, that you start to appreciate moments when you are happy, moments when you feel love, moments when you're in gratitude, moments, all those moments that we have, but then kind of yes, but it by saying, yeah, but I've got all these things to deal with. And we started to look at appreciating those moments as where we're meant to live. So that was the final piece for how the principles help people understand being caught up in addictions or compulsive behaviors. It was the final piece to see that the way out was to find contentment, to be satisfied with what is, to not get caught in self-evaluation, to think you need more. And so I'm going to just share a story and then check in with everyone. This is the story that taught it to me. I had heard this profound statement about mental health from listening to Sid, but I didn't know yet what to do with that yet, And then I was teaching a course to 30 people in the program, and I shared this first part of my addiction cycle, let's say. Excuse me. And somebody said, "Well, I don't use cocaine to feel better. I'm not feeling bad when I use cocaine. I'm using cocaine to feel higher. I want to feel more of this." And I didn't know how to answer that. I hadn't heard that question in that way. And fortunately, it was close to a lunch break. So I said, "Well, why don't we stop here and let me have a think on this?" So everybody went to lunch. I went to lunch, and I'm thinking, how does that fit? I'm just listening quietly to how does that fit? And what came to me, this is the intelligence of mind, how it guides all of us, how it serves us. In that hour and a half of lunch, what came to me was, if health is contentment, like what I just shared with you, then if you're in contentment, you don't desire more. You don't want to get higher because you have found that home. You found what we're all looking for. You're not wanting to get more contentment. Contentment is the answer. So I hadn't seen it that way until I tried to answer that question. And I came back and I shared that. And I said, we're not looking at we're not looking at a good feeling being the feeling you get by getting higher with cocaine. We're looking at something deeper within you, the consciousness that we would call contentment. So getting higher on cocaine has nothing to do with you feeling contentment, because you're still looking to feel higher. You're wanting to feel better, you see? And I started to talk about contentment with them like I talked with you. And everybody found a deeper understanding. So I'm just sharing my journey and trying to bring the principles to the field of addictions and compulsions. And that's how I see it, with what I've learned from the profound statements and sharing that Sydney Banks has given us. And that last piece of contentment was the work we did in our program, was helping people move from painful thinking to a sense of contentment. Like I said, helping them appreciate moments of contentment coming through with different forms. Excuse me, I did a workshop and then I presented at a Viva event in Spain, and I just got back, and I came back with a virus. So I'm feeling better, but I have a lingering cough. So please excuse me if I have to cough during our meetings. So I've talked for quite a while, and I just want to hear from you. I mean, we don't have to stay with what I presented. We could share other things about this understanding, other things about coaching from this understanding, or any questions you might have about what I just presented. So I'd love to hear from any of you. Anybody have something they want to ask or share?
Yeah, so just raise your hand. I can see you all, and you can speak to Mark. I'm so curious. I've got about 10 questions. I'm going to start with 2. I'm so curious, Mark, how this will be relatable to young people. We have such a crisis in our world, well, definitely in South Africa, with young people with marijuana and with vaping and, all of
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And it just feels to me like we need to address that. And because we're very busy with what we're doing here, building a program that we want to address these things for young people, that's one of them. The other one that I want to ask you is, when you talk about this kind of behavior and addictions and compulsions, I mean, that is across the board. Does it cover, both shopping and gossiping and gambling and all those kinds of things? It's the same. What you're talking about is the same thing. So they're totally, maybe they're relatable, but I would love to hear you speak to that, please.
Well, you see, the understanding of Sydney Banks' teachings is across the board. If you have an understanding for yourself, let's say you get more a sense of the truth around the power of thought, let's say around you worrying a lot or being judgmental, it will affect every aspect of your life in a positive direction. So this is behind everything. Internet, compulsively using the internet, what is it? You know, Facebook, Twitter, and all of those, gambling. Because you see, the reason people are doing it, first of all, is they want to feel better. And really, the point here is that they don't realize that when they gamble, the minute they start gambling, the only reason that's feeling better is because they had to change their thinking. Everybody can understand that. So it goes across the board. And it's also across the board that if people felt an inch more contentment, that would take care of all of that. Doesn't have to be grand. If people start to get an understanding that, they're feeling this need because of the way they're thinking, that they're in a low mood state because of thought, if they start to understand that and use that understanding kindly toward themselves, they'll see beyond. They'll see beyond their addiction. So they understand. I mean, for all of you, I think for me, when I had an insight into the nature of thinking, it took me beyond my usual ways of operating. So it goes across the board in any way a person can compulsively act in their lives. But nothing against that. It's just nothing against any of that, except that when people get hooked into it, they have a misunderstanding. They just don't see what actually is going on. The other piece is teenagers are closer to hearing this than adults. And so teens are open to hearing that thinking may have something to do with how they're feeling, that they need to go and, I don't know, get on social media, get on gaming, get on gossiping, whatever, smoke marijuana. Now, that doesn't mean that the chemicals and alcohol and drug and marijuana don't have some effect. But the power of feeling better comes from when people are having a couple of hits of marijuana, comes from they had to drop their thinking in order to feel better. Children and teenagers can get this pretty easily. But again, of course, you've got to develop rapport with them. And, you want to have your listening guide how you share this with them. But if you have a program for them, we had a program for teens, and we started to talk about the principles. In fact, our program wasn't like focused, the first meetings that teens would come to wasn't focused on addictions. It was focused on helping them understand the nature of these principles, so they could relax and not have to get defensive about their compulsive nature or their compulsive behavior, or their use, whatever it is they're using. When they relaxed, we can start to then share about how easy it is for people to attribute a good feeling to marijuana use or gossiping or social media.
Mm. Yeah, that's very helpful. Thank you.
There's more we could say, but I want to leave time for other people, but you really want to. I really have seen that that teens, the energy of teens make them more available to take a look at these principles. But you have to have good rapport. You got to really get the rapport. And that may be hanging out with them. When we looked at teens, sometimes we would just take a group for a walk around the building, or sometimes there was a basketball court by our clinic, and play some basketball with a team. But I don't know that you do that. It's just that you have to respect. You really need to get good rapport with a teenager. They have to know. Here's the thing. They have to know, and they will have radar for this, that when you share from your understanding of the principles, you are sharing the truth of it now. You really know that's true now. You're not just giving them something that you heard was a good idea. So they have radar to know you're speaking truth. If you stay with that and you listen to them, they'll consider you sharing the understanding of the principles, as well as what we've talked about today around compulsive behavior, or just repetitive behavior that's not helping them. Those are two important ingredients. It's true for everybody, but mainly but more for teens, because they hone in on your truth, that you're speaking what's true for you today. Tomorrow you may see more, but you have to speak to what do you see today that's true. So I don't start off sharing the 3 principles. I just share what I'm seeing today that could be helpful. I hope that makes sense, because
Totally.
yeah,
Totally.
yeah.
Thank you. Right. Who's got a
Who else
question?
Oh, I do? Oh, excuse me. Really, I'd love to hear what you're thinking, and um, any questions you have about sharing this, or even the understanding itself.
Yes, Kristen.
Hi, Dr. Howard. Everything you've said has been amazing. Thank you. I'm really stoked to be on this call to listen to what you said.
Oh, wonderful.
I wanted to ask you, with regards to getting a high from running or from drugs or whatever it does, because it sends your nerve endings on, and you get in endorphins and adrenaline and everything. So even if you are content in your life, then looking for the high, is that an added bonus, or is that it's not really necessary because you're content anyway, or is it so I get that not going shopping because you're content with life, and that's more of a softer thing. But then with regards to injecting yourself with something that really sends all your nerves fizzing, something that you can't really get naturally from your own thinking, is that on a different level? If you go for a run or don't go for a run,
Yeah.
you're not getting that kick, but you can still be content before you go for the run. I'm not sure if I'm making any sense.
Yeah, no, you're making a lot of sense. Yeah. Let's see. Biochemical changes do not bring a human being understanding of the nature of their thinking. It doesn't happen regularly. So there's a tolerance built up with the use of drugs and chemicals like alcohol. So yeah, you know, a lot of times people drinking alcohol say, oh, I like that buzz. You know, I don't really overdo it, but I like that buzz. Well, there are some chemical effects of alcohol on the brain's functioning, but it will never give a human being an understanding of why they can relax, how they can be less stressed, because that change only goes so far. You can have, I guess, all of the dopamines kicking in that you want. If you're still holding on to how terrible a person you are, that's not going to have any impact on that. And the power of dopamines has uh, not been proven to the extent that people explain them as the sole cause. So what you want to see is, yeah, things like biochemistry changes with certain drugs and with exercise and so forth. But the true understanding of where your experience of life comes from can never be given to you by biochemical changes. It won't happen. So that's the first thing that you want to help people see, is that, I mean, that even happened when I was, when people were seeing me and a psychiatrist would have them on like an antidepressant. They felt a little better, but it wasn't the actual medicine that was creating their having an understanding of thought or a good feeling. It was that by using the medicine, they started to drop their depressing thinking. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, look, living in contentment is greater than finding contentment will be greater than any high you can get. There's no comparison, because contentment isn't living a contented life. It's that you drop into a consciousness that you are right now that goes beyond your thinking. It goes beyond knowing of yourself. So this happiness we talk about is not, being having a happy life. It's living in the purity of just beautiful feelings and just in these deep feelings of love and understanding. So it's an energy of mind, let's say, it's mind that you drop into the minute you actually let go of thinking about yourself. It takes you beyond anything we can create as a high, anything chemicals can create as a high, because in that space, you are your true nature. You are your essence. Um, and so this energy is greater than anything you can create as a person, anything a chemical can create. So you want to reflect on that the rest of your life, that you can wake up to more of that essence you were at birth. These beautiful feelings you are, that you are mind. Mind is a spiritual energy beyond anything happening to you physically. So when people touch that, it comes as thought in terms of being generous, having gratitude, feeling blessed, creating something, giving to people, connecting to everyone, seeing that we're all the same. So yes, the true feeling of contentment takes you way beyond any high you can get. Takes you beyond even the high of these ecstasy drugs. Now, you can't figure that out. You don't want to try to get that intellectually. If this has made sense to you, you want to reflect on it for yourself. You don't want to try to figure out how can this state of contentment that Sid points to be greater than ecstasy, that space of ecstasy or psychedelics or whatever. You want to just start to reflect on what's available to us beyond any of that. And the way to help you with that is just keep listening to Sid. Just keep listening to Sydney Banks. But how you can help teenagers, if that's your program, is not to get into trying to describe that to them. It's to help them see what they have available to them once they could quiet down thinking about how they're doing. Teenagers are in a lot of thinking about themselves. That's what creates the stressful or painful thinking, that they want to go and do some things that they think will make them feel better. You know, you have to see that about them. Once they get into teen years, they start to, anything could get them to get judgmental about themselves. They go to school and they've got a new pimple. That and alone can get them to feel terrible about themselves. They don't want to be seen. So helping them just with the nature of thought will bring them to contentment. When you see them feeling more peace of mind, you could start to point out to them that's how they're meant to live. We had teens in our program that were so disturbed, they would be using drugs and so forth. It didn't get them to a better state. They would come home swearing and having nothing to do with their parents and calling them names and stomp up to their bedroom and start to play loud music. But once they were able to have some insight into the fact that this all started with some thinking they were getting into habitually about their own self-worth, thinking about themselves in a way that they didn't think they were worth much. That's why they were feeling so badly. It was just learned thinking. Once they started to tap into seeing that, they started settling down. They started to get back into beautiful feelings. And they would come up with their own ways to be, better with their family. Now that took time because they were so caught up in the drug use, but that doesn't mean it wasn't there. That doesn't mean they couldn't see this. But we had to see how seriously teenagers took everything there's about themselves and how that serious thinking caused them to feel badly. Once we could help them see that, they started to look beyond that thinking, beyond that addictive thinking. I hope that's a long that's a long answer to your question, but I hope that was helpful.
That was incredible. Thank you. I think the gist of it is that a lot of it is the self-worth and your thoughts and your thinking to your feelings is with regards to this kind of thing is huge, is all linked to your self-worth. And then the busyness of your mind. Just once you can slow down and get out of that, then you can start dealing with your habitual negative self-worth issues and move from that level on. And then just to help teenagers, such great advice, because I've got a little teenager and they're just in such a world of their own because of the peer pressure and the need to be accepted and the self-absorbed thing that they're doing at this age. So it's so difficult to figure out how to reach them. And by going through the principles and reminding them that they are perfect the way they are, it's genius. It's the way to do it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and listen to them without opinions or judgments, truly hear the humanness of the person in front of you. Sid helped me with that too. At the time I met Sid, my son was 2 years old. And one day, it didn't happen a lot, but one day as a small group, we met with him and we were talking about children. And he said, children have wisdom too. And I thought, wow, again, something profound. I had never thought of my son having wisdom too, but of course, we're all the same spiritual energy. Why wouldn't he? He's mind too, right now. So was those teenagers that are in your life or that you're working with. So who else? Who else has something they'd like to share or ask about?
Thanks, Kirsten. That was so great.
What's that?
I said it was so great that she asked that question because it helps everybody. Right. Who's got something on their mind? Yes, Audrey, I'm Eva.
I just want to ask, where I work at the moment, alcohol abuse in the workplace is very significant. I just want to know, how can I approach staff members to see, I don't know how to put this, but to see that the alcohol is not actually doing them well. It's actually damaging them. And just to see their self-worth. Because in the area where I stay, there's a lot of drug and alcohol abuse, but it filters down to workplace as well. So I just want to know you spoke a little bit about mental health. How can I, as a manager, just work with my staff or the people that are in the same workplace with me? How can I influence them?
So that's just another great question. First, the first way that you will influence staff is to continue living the understanding that you have of the principles or Sydney Banks' teachings. Just continue living that in the workplace. For me, I was a very judgmental person. And when we would have staff meetings once a week, and a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a nurse would present about a client, I would always respond from being judgmental, you know. And then as I attended Sid's seminar and read his book, Second Chance, it dawned on me that my colleagues are the same as me. They're the same. They're going about helping patients in the best way they can think to do. They're wanting to help people just like I want to help people. And I had a ton of compassion for my colleagues. And I started to live in understanding for them rather than judgment, being judgmental. It went away. And then about 6 months later, one of the psychologists came up to me and said, you know, I've been watching you and you've changed and you haven't gone back. I want to know what you're learning. So that's the first piece. People notice that you're living in a more understanding place. Now, as a manager, if you're going to talk to somebody on staff about alcoholism or so forth, you need a ton of permission. You need a ton of permission. And you need to just listen to the person rather than suggest something. That's a very delicate situation, you know. But if you feel like sharing something to some staff person to be of help to them, you really need to sit in just the feeling of love for the staff person, and you can't have anything on your mind that hints at being judgmental or having an opinion or an assumption about what they need, really. And you just have to inquire. You know, you might say, I don't know, you might wonder with them about drinking. And, but if you're going to say anything from your understanding, you need a lot of permission to do so. Permission about, can I share something about drinking problems? Is it okay if I just share that with you? You see? The other way you might do that is you might find a way, this is just an idea. I'm thinking if you could do more of a presentation rather than speak to staff individually, it may be a better way to start to introduce it. You might offer like a lunch meeting about a understanding you have found that helps with drinking or drug use. Or you might just call it a meeting about stress rather than have it look at alcohol or drug use, and start to explain about the principles. It will get to people. So all I'm saying is there may be a way to do this as a manager where you offer, like, I don't know, a weekly get-together where you share an understanding in a neutral way. If people attend that and if people come to that, some people will eventually come to you and ask about alcohol or drug use. But again, you know, it's a delicate thing as a manager to talk directly to someone. So you just want to make sure you're in the right place. Your heart is in the right place. And you have permission with the person to talk in a way, this way with them. So first, you influence by by the understanding you live in as you go about managing. If you've had an understanding of these principles and it's helped you manage with more understanding, that comes across to people. It influences them. It actually wakes them up that you might be a helpful resource. You might be a safe resource just by that. But if you decide you want to take another step, then you want to look at what I pointed out to you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Thanks.
Great.
Michelle?
Michelle.
Hi. Oh, I can't hear you.
You're on mute?
Oh, now I can hear you.
No.
Hello.
Still not. There we go.
Hi, Dr. Mark. Thank you for being with all of us tonight. I just wanted to maybe add to what you've just said regarding my own journey and the question on being a manager and how to help people around you. And I think after the 4 years of being in the 3 principles, myself learning that number one, I'm not responsible or I can't change anybody around me except me. And so I did that. And Eva, I just focused on me getting better and the self-love and getting strong and using the principles. And I stopped drinking alcohol 22 months ago completely. And the improvement in my calmness, the improvement in my presence, the improvement in my mood, because I'm in control of that, it's kind of filtered off a lot to people around me. So, Dr. Mark, what you say is you show through the principles, if you can show your own transformation and metamorphosis, it naturally filters out to the people around you in your community, which has been amazing.
Yes, that's yes. Not only that, but if you're in the role of a manager or a supervisor or something like that, you'll see things. If you're living, you can't do anything but live your understanding. That's the first thing. No one can, you know.
Yeah.
But if you're truly just living from the insights you've had, people will notice. Honestly, people will notice. But what happens is your listening's different, so that you can hear what we might call wisdom. You can hear from the intelligence of mind. It helps you out. I mean, when I manage this program and a staff of 8 psychologists, and one of the things that occurred to me was to take care of the state of mind of my team when we had a staff meeting, is take care of the state of mind. So that was something new to me. But it was just an example that as you're living from more and more of your understanding of the principles, you get guided by your wisdom. So the way you are as a manager shifts to me, being more of an understanding person. I listened better, and people started to, I guess, see that. I'm looking back, because it started to be that our program, the team itself, started to live in a nicer feeling. That doesn't mean that as a supervisor, I didn't have to talk directly to one or two of my staff at times through the years. But again, when I did that, I was like what I was suggesting, my heart was out to the person, and I did not want to sit having any opinions or judgments. I just wanted to listen, but I still had to take like what they call a corrective action. I just want to give you an example of how the intelligence of mind guides you. I was in a staff meeting with my team, and I had to change the way the hours that we worked. We had to start to add evening hours. Up until then, we only worked 9 to 5. But now we wanted to change to evening hours all the way to 8 o'clock, and that we would all choose 2 nights a week to do that. Well, that's tough, isn't it? You're going to come in and people are going to start thinking about that because their lives are going to change. Anyhow, I was presenting it, and one of the staff in the program that was really supportive of me, that helped me out a lot in the program, said something, and I got short with her. I responded in a rude way, and I couldn't get out of it, and we were going through the meetings, and I knew I had responded in a, difficult, in this rude way, but I didn't know what to do. So the meeting ended, and we went our separate ways. And as I was walking back to my office, it just came to me, you have to go apologize. You know, she's your right arm person. She supported you. And you have to go make it right. Now, I never thought of that before. But that just came to me, and I went and did that. And it took care of the relationship, and it even deepened our relationship as colleagues. So I'm just giving you a story about how as you live in whatever it is that your role is, as with this understanding, not only do people take notice, but you're given more wisdom about how to do your role. So, Sharon, how are we doing?
We're doing great. We could listen to you all night. It's so
Okay.
wonderful. Thank you. And I'd love for any one of you just to, share or like Michelle did, or ask a question. It's really so helpful. There've been some lovely questions. Is there anybody that wants to ask anything or share? No? All good? So,
Well, there's
you know,
one thing more that I wanted to add from that last answer. And it really is the foundation of the listening piece in the 3 principles, coaching or health work. And I was alluding to in the last answer that you have to believe that you are this intelligence of mind, and that it will guide you in your role, whatever it be, including your work here. And so when we talk about listening, it's more of a consciousness of getting ourselves out of the way so we can hear the guidance, this intelligence. People might call it wisdom, that will guide us to how to share the understanding at this particular moment. And you just have to begin to believe it's true. You'll never figure that out intellectually, that you are mind and the intelligence of the universe is serving you. You just have to begin to trust, have faith, believe it. And that's what I was alluding to, is that as you live in this understanding and you listen to your clients, you want to listen beyond thinking about it, beyond your own personal thinking. You want to be curious about how they see things. You want to explore how they're sharing things that are puzzling you. Because as you explore that and get curious with them, you'll see a moment where you can share something of your understanding. So I wanted to just offer that the logic behind our talking about listening is that you're guided by mind. You're guided by the intelligence of mind everywhere. I've seen it through the years help me in my marriage, that I would see things about how to be as a partner to my wife in a way that I never ever thought of before, or you could never find what came to me in a therapy book about couples. So I'm just trying to share with you that you can relax and just have faith that you'll be given things during your coaching work. You'll be given ways to be, or things to ask about, or a teachable moment. And you yourself don't have to do what we call the heavy lifting. The intelligence of mind is doing the heavy lifting for you. So you just have to show up with a good heart, wanting to do the best you can for someone and clear your mind of your own personal thinking and listen to the person. So I just want to, there's so much here of what I've shared that we can take like 90 minutes on, but I hope with what I've pointed to, it's made sense to all of you and you get the flavor of it. You can begin to reflect on it. Don't try to figure out how to adapt it, or don't try to figure out all the points I was sharing. Let it kind of just be with you and kind of percolate. And if something made sense, you have found it. And you have to give it time to come to you.
Can I just add something there, please, Mark?
Sure.
You talk about a teachable moment, and what I've seen in my work is how remarkable it is when a client who's maybe spent a very short time with me, maybe one or maybe two sessions, has come back and said, I met with someone in my work, and there was just this moment, and I could sense that I just needed to listen, and it made the biggest difference in that person's life. And I didn't teach the client to do that. That wasn't anything I said to them. It was a moment that they recognized because they got it. They just got it. And I love that part of this work when you talk about, mind and intelligence will help you. It always is. We just we don't see it because we're so in the way of it. We up in our own minds about what it is that we should be doing. And we don't need to. And that's what I find just constantly mesmerizing about the principles, right? Honestly.
Well, that's I saw that all the time. That I used to do a 2-week meeting once every day for 2 weeks for people starting our program. And most people coming in were just either attempting to or had just recently stopped their use, and it was heavy use. And they would come in disheveled and upset and anxious and so forth. And just sharing in like 2 days, a 90-minute meeting, sharing about this understanding in different ways. People were different. People came in and they were well-groomed. People were starting to share how they went home the night after the meeting and realized that they weren't getting angry like they used to, or they felt more love for their families. And when people brought this to the group, other people got hopeful. They got hopeful. And this is one of the things about the principles, consciousness, levels of consciousness, that people can live beyond their conditioned thinking at a higher level of understanding is hopeful. It's the hopeful part of the principle. And if you give hope to people suffering, particularly in addictions or compulsions or abusive kinds of use of things outside of themselves, you give them hope and they'll want to learn what you have to say. Yes. And so that happened all the way through. And George Pransky and he has a new book out. And at the last chapter, he talks about what he and I did at this this recovery program, and how once people started to just change on their own and share that change with us as we presented the principles, that we heard in the community that people were asking to join our group, even though it was difficult for them. It was like a Saturday morning, and most people didn't want to be there. People were starting to request our group because the word got out. But it's nothing about me. It's about when people start to like share their understanding, their insights, how they were different. People got hope. They saw, man, if I could see this, that can happen to me. So that's the hope we all can provide humanity.
And what a privilege it is to do that. And thank you for sharing that with us.
Yes.
And giving us even more hope. Mark, really, it's been so wonderful. I know I can speak for everyone, a little bit shy tonight, but really such lovely questions. And to give up your time for us, it's just goes beyond anything that I could be grateful for. It's just amazing. And thank you. And I'm so glad that we became friends and I could introduce you to some amazing people. So thank you for your time. It's been really, really beautiful.
Oh, yeah, it was. It's beautiful. I could just hear people's respect and nice feeling. And there was one other thing, Sharon, I wanted to offer people. I just came across by accident because a client wanted to know more about if I ever shared about addictions. And I forgot that I did this podcast interview a few years ago. And I went and I watched the podcast interview, and it really is rich. Again, it's not talking about me, but in it, it's really helpful. It covers everything about the principles. And so what I'm going to do is send it to you, Sharon, and you could send it out. I'll share the link to that. And if you listen to all of it, it's an hour. It's a bit, but if you listen to all of it, you'll see that everything about this understanding is covered in a meaningful way. And it even surprised me that I knew this much. But I want to share that with your group.
That'll be great. And I will most definitely send it. Yeah, we do surprise ourselves when we further along the journey. No, but I knew it then already. So that's just all beautiful.
Yeah.
So go and look up Dr. Mark Howard. He's got YouTube videos, and I'll definitely share that. And thank you for thinking of it for us. And what a lovely bonus that you've given us. So it's been just over an hour and a half, and everybody's been you know, no one left. We all have been just so delighted with what you've given us tonight. So thank you once again. Please unmute yourselves all, and let's give Dr. Mark Howard a wonderful thank you and a goodbye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you
Mark,
so
much.
much.
It was
Thank
great.
you.
Ciao, everybody. Thanks, Sharon.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you so
bye.
much, Sharon.
Bye.
Thank
Hey,
you.
Moni. Bye.
Bye.
Everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.